just any place I throw my saddle down, I guess.
So, welcome to the initial episode of the Rugged Revival podcast. This is episode number 1 with our man Jack Browning. Hello, mate.
Hey, man. Good to finally talk to you.
Absolutely. It's been a long time in the making, isn't it?
It has, yeah. I mean, it's got to be getting on for 6 months now or something. We
I know.
kind of started chatting and stuff, yeah.
I needed to get my stuff in order, didn't I? So thanks for the prompt to get this going. And no, really excited to do this. Unfortunately, Dan cannot be with us this week. I was just talking to Jack off air, just saying, Dan has got the immune system of a frail 90-year-old woman. So we wish him well, sort of, but hopefully he'll be on the next one. So no offense to you, Jack.
Human petri dish.
You are stuck with me, mate, for this particular podcast. So for me, I'm your host, Terry Havard. This is a Rugged Revival. If you're part of our group, you'll know that we're all things country artistry, which fits really well with Jack. We're a fan of whiskey. I've got a whiskey right now. It's a Tuesday night, but who cares?
I would have a whiskey, but
I'm rubbing it in your face then.
Yeah, man. It's all good. I can almost taste it.
And Jack, we've been speaking for quite a while over DMs, and I think you're probably one of the first people that I connected with on Instagram. And weirdly, it was through your artwork, and I think a lot of people have probably said the same. Discovered your artwork, loved it because it's all not all country based, but a lot of it's about country artists. And then discovered your music and found out you had 2 talents, and I have 0. So congratulations.
Thanks, man. I don't feel very talented. I always say I make a noise and colour stuff in for a living.
Absolutely not, mate. You're doing yourself a disservice. So yeah, UK country music superstar, artistic savant, and judging from your champagne taste album cover, sex symbol for the ladies now.
Well, it's not easy. My other half Anne's been trying to come to terms with that was I was saying it the same day that came out, the searches in Google of eye bleach and how do I unsee things tripled as well. So
I'm with her, mate, to be honest with you. Fair dues. But so yeah, I think maybe just for anyone that doesn't know Jack, we'll start perhaps just going back early days. So you're obviously from the UK. What part of the UK are you from, Jack?
So I'm from London originally, but we moved out to Essex when I was pretty young. So kind of grew up here. I consider Essex to be home. Yeah.
Awesome. Whereabouts in Essex?
So not too far from Chelmsford. So Chelmsford's kind of like my hometown, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth playing in bars and stuff there and everything. And yeah, we live out it's pretty rural out where we are, but Chelmsford's like the nearest landmark.
It's the nice bit then, is it? The posh bit?
No, definitely I wouldn't say the posh bit. That's kind of like the other side of Chelmsford is where you're heading for that bit.
Okay.
Yeah, big gated houses and stuff. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
We like the yokels of the Chelmsford.
The yokels, I like that.
Yeah.
I love it, mate. Love it. I grew up in Luton, so I wasn't far from you.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
We used to holiday in places like Essex, like Southend. All the good places. So yeah, awesome. So So you grew up in London, moved to Essex later on. You're 26 years old now. So how did you get into everything? How far should we go back? Should we go back to kind of childhood and kind of work our way forward in terms of that?
Yeah. I mean, I was always kind of drawing and sketching and stuff. Didn't really take the art too seriously until I was in, probably around 15, 16. And I was lucky enough to have like these 3 amazing teachers at school who, they really encouraged what I was doing. I hadn't painted before then, and they suggested it. And I'm still very good friends with them to this day. When I went out on the road with Willie Carlisle last year, one of my teachers, Tim, actually came out to the Liverpool show, and first time I'd seen him in a couple of years. That was really nice.
That's awesome, man. Was that a bit strange, kind of seeing him in that setting?
Well, we kind of, so when I left school, you know, I'd gone through some real rough times as a kid, and he was someone I really looked up to and still look up to. And so we'd always had like a really kind of close bond, you know. And then kind of went from, you know, teacher to when I left to, you know, being a buddy, and then for a brief period I'd go in and do some lessons with him too. So it was kind of like colleagues for a time. And
Oh,
but yeah, it was the first time he sort of made it out to see a show, and obviously since moving back up to Liverpool, which is where he's from originally. So yeah, it was kind of strange, you know, but you know, it was very lovely. And yeah, music and stuff, it was kind of the same. You know, I always surrounded by music. Not really musical though by any stretch, and I'm still not really. I'm a bit of an ape when it comes to music theory and everything. And
did
yeah,
that
I
come
play with
after
some.
then, music theory? You just kind of
It
strum
hasn't.
along, and
It still ain't arrived, man. I'm still waiting on it.
it's hard, and it's really hard.
Yeah, you know, I always like that interview Rick Rubin does. I don't know if you've seen it, where the
Not
guy's
sure,
like,
no.
so obviously Rick Rubin, super famous producer, and the guy goes, so, you know, do you play an instrument? He's like, no, barely. He's like, okay, do you know how to work a sound desk? He's like, no. He's like, I have no technical ability at all, but he just knows what he likes. And I guess in a sense that's very similar to me. But yeah, I kind of tried guitar like 3 or 4 times before I actually stuck with it. And but music was always kind of the language, especially between my old man and me. You know, we didn't connect over a lot, but we did connect over music. And you know, kind of brought up on Dylan and Pink Floyd. And
Pink Floyd,
he,
yeah.
yeah, he wasn't a huge country fan, but he loved Johnny Cash. So I guess that was kind of like the gateway, you know, to me discovering, you know, the rest of that kind of country and Americana scene.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, I didn't discover country and probably until, late 20s. I probably left it
Yeah,
quite late, but kind of once you're hooked, aren't you? And it's
yeah.
awesome that you kind of bonded with your dad over that sort of thing.
I, I think with as well with like especially the country kind of work. I'm assuming you're talking about too. Yeah, I was talking to someone recently. A lady named Lula. She's great. She runs at the Crossroads here in Essex, and she's putting on some great acts. Um, and she was saying so many of her like metalhead friends and alternative friends. Yeah, as long as you can just appreciate a good story, it's very accessible. You know,
It
like
translates, yeah.
yeah, I know so many people. I mean, you know, Willie Carlisle. You know, he was like an ex-punk rocker. You know, and you know now he's playing like this amazing folk stuff, and I think it just lends itself to that. I think it's a very universal thing, isn't it?
It is, and I think people shouldn't pigeonhole themselves to kind of one genre. And I grew up personally listening to like Fleetwood Mac, AC/DC, kind of the more heavier
Me too, man.
type of rock. And I think, as you cross over to like the Eagles and stuff like that, it becomes more countrified, isn't it? So,
For sure, yeah. You listen to like Skinner and you
Oh,
know
absolutely, man. I actually wrote a
Eagles. You
list
know,
of stuff like that. I thought, who did I, grow up listening to? Because I thought maybe you might ask me, and my memory is so shockingly bad. So yeah, Eagle Free, particularly Paul
Free,
Rogers,
great
man,
man.
awesome band. Leonard Skinner, Allman Brothers Band. I love the stuff that Derek Trucks is doing right now. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
Derek
just
Trucks
on
is the
another
man.
planet. Yeah, on
Yeah,
another
Susan
planet.
Tedeschi as well, like his wife. She's just like, otherworldly good voice. You know.
So literally a marriage made in heaven, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I love that video where BB King turns to her and says like, "I see why you married him."
Is that the
Uh,
same one? Because I'm a huge John Mayer fan. Is that the same one where John Mayer's probably just looking, going, "Bloody hell, man, this is just another
yeah,
level."
and he just kind of looks at the audience like, "Yeah, I've just been done." You know,
Yeah,
like,
you can't come back
um,
from that, can you? So,
hell no.
so no, that's really interesting. So you kind of grew up with that. You kind of bonded with your dad, and with the artistry stuff. It's really interesting. So moving forward slightly then. So how did kind of you come about to do what you're doing these days? Did it come overnight? Was it a slow kind of gradual process?
Yeah, it was definitely a gradual process, man, and I mean, it still is. I'm not a so I always consider myself a guitarist, and I'm a very, very reluctant singer, let alone somebody who kind of fronts a band now, you know. But I kind of got bullied into it. I've told the story a few times, but it still makes me laugh. About 6 years ago, my buddy Kempy, who he's responsible for a lot of the videos and stuff I put out, like the music videos. Basically phoned me up one day and was like, I've hired out a little studio tonight, and figure we cut a video. And I was like, oh cool, who's singing? He was like, you are. And I was like, I can assure you I'm fucking not. And he pulled the classic, he pulled rank basically, and was like, well, you're not going to let down me and my friend who's going to be videoing with me and the other friend who's going to be helping out with sound. So suddenly there's some stakes, there's 3 people. And I turned up and we actually cut a version of House of the Rising Sun by the White Buffalo, which they use in Sons of Anarchy. So
Yes.
to tie it all in. Yeah, kind of, was releasing little things like that, released an old folk cover. And then at the time I was touring with my buddy Aaron, and we were playing kind of the stuff I've been brought up on. Like all through my teens, I was playing in rock bands, a lot of dad rock.
Nothing wrong with that rock.
Faded denim, sticky floors, Les Pauls, all that stuff.
I knew it'd come back into fashion, to be fair though.
For sure, man. And I was playing around Europe with Aaron, and we were playing with like the same festivals as Jeff Beck and Gregory Porter and Josh Stone. And then COVID happened, and I just left that band, and I was suddenly trying to figure out what I could play on my own in the apartment that Anne and I had, and it was just me and a guitar. And so kind of the year or two before that, I've been discovering a lot of the new kind of country stuff and folk stuff and blues, and just started leaning on that more because it was kind of the most relatable thing to me. I was
more naturally.
And like everyone else, I was stuck at home with just my acoustic. I didn't have a band. I didn't have any gigs with a band to look forward to or work towards. So I was like, right, well, what do I listen to that I can kind of lean on a little bit? And I started leaning more and more on the kind of singer-songwriter stuff.
That's amazing, man. And I suppose that bleeds in really nicely to your 1-year anniversary for Red Eye Radio. Does it seem weird being I know, man. It's it'd be really good to go into that now. And does it feel like it's been 12 months, or does it feel longer, shorter?
It's weird. It sort of all depends on how I look at it, really. I mean, in some ways it seems like forever ago. If I think back to what I've done in that 12 months since, it seems like way longer. But then look at it from another way and I'm like, man, how has that been a whole year? Because things move quick, and obviously with the art and the music, I guess I don't really take time to kind of look back on stuff, really, because there's always something coming up.
It's always moving.
Yeah, and it's just like anything. It was like when I was doing carpentry for a living. It's like there's just always like the next thing to think about, and when you're in it, it's difficult. But I mean, we started recording it like 2 years. 2 years this November was when we first went into the studio, and it was a complete accident. Like that album should never have been. It should have barely been an EP, honestly.
Just grew and grew, did it?
Yeah, and it was weird. I mean, right through COVID, just before COVID hit, I'd written a song on the record called Kerosene, and for about 2.5 years, I was like the worst singer-songwriter ever because I did neither of those things. I wasn't out singing because COVID, and then I wasn't even, songwriting. I barely picked up the guitar, for a few months, and then had a big switch up in kind of my personal circumstances. At the time. So Anne, my other half, she's Dutch, so we were going over to the Netherlands for a little while, and I was back doing carpentry in the daytime, and I just had this kind of midlife crisis, half a lifetime earlier than I should have, where I was like, fuck, like if we go to the Netherlands, I'm basically starting over again, like I don't know any promoters there, I don't know any other musicians there, like let me just go into the studio and I'll get Kerosene down and maybe write something else in the month until I actually go in. So one of my best friends, Rob, who I'd met, probably like 7 years ago now, he said back then, before before I'd ever sung in front of anybody. He didn't even know it, but he said to me, "Dude, you're going to end up recording an album. Like, it's going to be your album, and when you do it, hit me up, and we'll figure it out. We'll make it happen." So 5 years after that, I just hit him up. You know, still, I was on the train. I remember it really vividly. I was on the train to Southend, which where I was living at the time, just covered in fucking. It was like the plasterboard shit and like polyfiller. You know, I said to
Proper
him, "Hey man,
working
like,
man.
yeah, at that point, and kind of masquerading because I was a pretty shit carpenter, I imagine, but doing it nonetheless. And I said to him, I said, "Hey man, that offer," and he knew exactly what I was talking about straight away. He was like, "Yeah, when do you want to do it?" So I was like, "Well, you know, I'm going to be moving in around 6 weeks. So how about a month?" And so we booked 2 days in the studio, and yeah, that month I went from having one song in like nearly 3 years to kind of writing a couple more, and then we got in the studio, and while we were there, I was like, "I think I still got one or two more songs in me. Like maybe we could, maybe I could book another session down the line." I think like 4 sessions later, we had like 10 tracks, and kind of thought, well, might as well put out a record, you know. And it kind of bloomed from there. It was very, very unplanned, very haphazard.
Like in a natural sort of way, isn't it? Though, I mean, you know, probably a stupid question, but why is it called Red Eye Radio for a start?
That's not a stupid question at all, man. It so I listen to a lot of music, but I'm pretty dead set in what I listen to. You know,
Mm.
I have to kind of like consciously every couple of weeks go, right, let's try and find some new shit. You know, let's try and do this. Whereas Anne, my other half, she's great at finding new music, and you know, I don't know, she's always manages to find really cool stuff. And so we created this playlist probably a year or two before I did the album, and I was listening to a lot of like country and reading a lot of kind of American literature and stuff. And somehow we got onto the theme of truckers and how we thought trucking was pretty fucking cool. And you know, like just kind of thought about those old radio stations that those truckers would have tuned into, and
Mm.
doing like the red eye drives at night. So we named this playlist, we had Red Eye Radio.
That's
Um,
cool. That's a cool story, man.
yeah, and then when you know, like we just constantly add stuff to it, both of us, and it was like our dumping ground for like new stuff we'd found. You know, even if we hadn't listened to it yet, it'd be like, right, put it in there, we'll listen to it on our next big drive. And you know, I was doing a lot of driving back and forth to the Netherlands, and you know, for shows and stuff. And yeah, when the album came around, we were overthinking it for ages, and well, ergo, I was overthinking it for ages, and it just made sense to call it that when we figured, yeah, those collection of songs had such a big impact on what I was doing. It sort of just seemed right, really.
It made sense. No, I like the story behind it. Like I said, I thought it was going to be a really stupid question that I could have looked up really easy, but I couldn't see, and I thought I'm going to ask Jack regardless.
No, it's actually,
But
I think you might be the first person to have asked that.
well, there you go. Yeah, that's the first string of my bow, mate. There you go.
There you go, man.
But no, like you, I think, you know, it's really easy to get stuck in a rut, and I can push myself out of that, you know. And I think it really helps when you got Spotify and certainly Instagram now, and you can see kind of the stuff that we're kind of pumping out from our socials. That I'm you know, not discovering, but I'm coming across artists I probably would never have listened to previously. People with less than, you know, 900 followers, something ridiculous, and you go
Yeah.
onto their Spotify, no hardly any listens, and they're absolutely amazing. You know, someone this week, Nathan Bess, you know, sounds, that Appalachian sound, that kind of holler that they have, he's got
Yeah.
it. And I thought I would never have, you know, listened to Nathan's stuff before. So
Yeah.
I love this
I
fact.
mean, music's more accessible than ever, right?
It is.
And it means that, you know, you discover stuff that you wouldn't have heard, and stuff that you might not have even liked at one point, but it comes along at the right time. And you know, for all the faults, and there are many, like the Spotify and stuff is great for people like me who you know, don't have this huge platform, still independent, don't have these huge PR budgets and stuff. It's great for that.
Yeah, I like
and
that
obviously
fact.
worked because we connected as well through that.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, you make
Cheers.
new friends. Yeah. Cheers, dude.
Cheers, man.
You enjoy your coffee, man. I'll finish a bottle of my smoke head.
It's not as spicy as that one, but yeah.
Right. But no, I'm really pleased that things are moving. I had a proper, and I suppose the flip side of that is that music can just become disposable, and that's the part I hate. People pour their heart and soul into things, and you're just kind of scrolling, aren't you? Until you find that kind of catch, you think, well, that sounds good. I'm going to explore, and I kind of go down various rabbit holes every week. The stuff I pump out is, I've genuinely gone down the rabbit hole and I've put it out for a reason. I get a lot of requests.
Got like the pins in the wall and all the strings.
I have, like a proper weirdo, mate. I put this up today just for effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
just to make it look cool.
It off when the podcast is done. Yeah,
exactly. But no, it's been really good to connect with you, man. And I had a proper listen of your album, Red Eye Radio, and I thought I'm going to have a proper listen to it. I've got proper speakers now, proper setup in my man cave. So I thought I'm going to sit here with a few whiskeys and listen to my man Jack. And do you want to hear my really shit Rolling Stones type review of Red Eye Radio? You're going to be properly offended by this.
As long as it's good.
Oh, it's good, man.
As long as you liked it.
I'm not as articulate as someone like Rolling Stones, but first of all, for the fact that you've explained it kind of, not on a whim it came, but as it kind of grew and grew. I thought the album flows really nicely and connects. There's a start, middle, end. And not many albums have that. It's kind of one of those that I think actually does that. It starts with an old-timey Western country feel with an instrumental that wouldn't sound out of place on a spaghetti Western. That's something I wrote down in a week on my Apple Notes, like a fucking loser. And then it slowly meanders into some nice folk tracks, and I thought I liked that. And then for me, this was the good part. It was a proper straight kick in the bollocks with some old school blues, rock. Ain't Me Much to Me. That is my favourite on the album, man. It's proper. Thanks, it's man. A bit of me. It's a bit of me. It reminds me of Free. A bit of Paul Kossoff. Your vocals are awesome. The guitars are amazing. Was it Jack on the guitars, or was it? Trying
to think. No, that was no. I mean, that's all the lead stuff on that is me. I'm just trying to think if anyone else did anything on that. No, I don't think so. I think that was just me on guitar.
Loved it, mate. Honestly, that was my favourite. That's on the Rugged Revival Spotify playlist, if anyone's interested.
Plug it, man.
Absolutely, man. Cheers, dude. And then it simmers down to the next track with an ominous country song, as I put it. I wrote in the week. I might have had a few whiskies by this point. And then it was back to some proper old school country. You had this kind of Robert Johnson mic effect, some twangy guitars, bit of old phonograph sound to it. I think that was Cold Mountain Wailing, that one. Really liked that. Man. Yeah.
It's sort of become like its own thing, that song. I mean, when we play it live, it's much more of a kind of, we've added some honky tonk to it when we play it live with the band.
Cool, man.
I mean, shout out to my buddy Dan, who ended up producing the record. He owns the studio and he's the engineer and guy does all the mixing. He's kind of just does everything at the studio. And he ended up producing the album. And when I had that song with me, he just suggested we record a really old, I think it's like a Sanyo tape recorder. So I was mic'd into that, and then we literally just recorded that. So
it's
like secondhand, but very much inspired by a lot of the Alan Lomax recordings and kind of that early, like capturing field hollers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was really cool. I like that. I love that effect. It's just really different. I've heard that for quite some time. And then you go up next with Blue Eyed Sun. I put down this and the epic dramatic building track with cool ethereal atmospheric padding. Do you like these words I'm using, Jack? It's
they're very,
I've been like Tyrannosaurus, mate.
Yeah, I'm taking notes. Yeah,
I'm going to write your next track, mate. It'll be absolutely crap, but we'll give it a go.
Do you do PR? Yeah.
Really badly. Have you seen my socials, mate? Honestly, it's made up on the spot. And then, it's a reprise of Dog Tired right at the end. I think it caps off the album properly, mate. Tells the story throughout. And I actually wrote a term down: spaghetti western country folk rock. I think we should make a new genre of that, because that is
Yeah, just
what
added that one to the list. Yeah.
you might
Yeah.
disagree
Well,
completely.
it was. I mean, when we were in it, it became a real kind of focus to make it an album, rather than just a collection of songs. So the setup to the recording process was very haphazard and very accidental. But once we were in it, I was very conscious of kind of, I guess, inspired by film. I love classic cinema, I love Western cinema, I love Western literature, and we wanted to create a kind of journey and stuff. So, I mean, there's little samples throughout the album as well that we kind of brought in, and wanted it to have like a flow, and we always had an eye for vinyl as well. So we wanted to really keep in mind, well, what's going to kick off the B side? It's like, well, you go from, I think Dog Tired closes the A side. Well, let's start the B side with Ain't Mean Much to Me, and these kind of Allman Brothers kind of inspired guitars and stuff. So
slamming, mate. Yeah, it kind of brings it back to life. It kind of, it's up and down, and then I think you bring that in and you think, Jesus, that kind of hits you, man.
I mean, like I directly say on all the PR we did for the record, which was mostly in-house. I worked with a buddy of mine, Alex, and a wonderful PR person from over here, Rachel, on one of the singles as well. And I was getting across to them, I was saying, like, it is like spaghetti westerns have played a big part in like the iconography and the instrumentation and how things came along. And then one of my favorite criticisms I heard of the record, someone said it's like if you ran, what was it? If you ran drive-by era, Jason Isbell era drive-by truckers with Red Dead Redemption and Ennio Morricone AI. And I was like, that's
that
the
an
one.
insult? Is that an insult?
Yeah.
Seriously.
But yeah, so I mean, I guess we did it.
Well, you know what, mate? It sounded proper different to many of the things that I've listened to, and like I say, I'll always give things a proper listen. I think it deserves it. That's why I've got a decent setup in my man cave, and sometimes just switch the bloody lights off, just listen to an album, especially when you've poured your heart and soul into it. And I think, I loved it. My description of it was mediocre at best, so I apologize for that, mate.
No, man, I mean, that's what you felt, listen to it, and that means a lot. I think the recording process, I mean, we strung it the fuck out, like, to be blunt, because we never planned on a record, we did it in like 4 different sessions over about 4 months. And then I was fortunate enough to work with a couple of musicians who I had the pleasure of knowing, but have since obviously kind of befriended, and they worked on it. So Pat Lyons was on the record, and he does all the Colter wall stuff, and he plays all of the string stuff on Colter's record. So that took time, and it was probably like, it was basically a year from saying I've got a few songs to record to having the album out. So we inflated it a bit, but it did give me a kind of appreciation. So I try to make a conscious effort to be less kind of doom scrolly when I'm going through Spotify and Instagram. If I see something, especially an album or an EP, I sort of think, rather than scrolling, just take a quick listen, even,
past the 3-second point. It's easily
because
done,
that's also because also like, I'm sure it's happened. I've not got crazy numbers, so I'm sure people have just scrolled through mine and stuff. But it's one of those things where that might be someone else's year, of working on something. So I try and give it their due, if I can. And it's nice to hear that you do the same.
No, absolutely. I've forced myself to do it for absolutely that reason, mate. I'm not a recording artist myself, but I think the effort you put in deserves more than an idiot like me just like I say, doom scrolling and just listening to the first 5 seconds of a track, hoping it will catch my ear. And I think, sometimes even just scroll to the middle, or each segment and give it that due at least. So no,
and things grow on you too. Like I listen to records pretty regularly now. That first time I heard them, I was like, yeah, it's cool, it's all right.
sometimes I don't even like it. I'm the same as you. It's really weird. It's like there's something about it. At the beginning, I'm like, I don't like it, or I'm not sure about it, and I'll leave it. But then you come back to it, and you're like, this is the best fucking thing on earth.
Yeah, or
And
something's come along when you need it. It's like the
yeah,
universe kind of sends it back your way.
mate, it's weird. And one of the weirdly that story for me resonates with Flatland Cavalry, who were my absolute favorite. Have been for the last couple of years now. When I first heard him, I was sat in the conservatory. I can see it now. My youngest boy sat on my lap, asleep, and I couldn't, reach my phone to turn off Spotify. So we just went on to some other stuff, and
just a hostage to the algorithm.
I was just like, and it turned out to be the best thing ever. And that's what I remember now. I think, what, I couldn't touch my phone, I couldn't doom scroll, and I couldn't move on. So I had to just listen to what was there. And what was there at the beginning, I was like, I'm not sure about this. And then it just went on. I thought, this is fucking awesome, and then I just kind of, again, you go down the rabbit hole of YouTube after a few whiskeys on a Saturday night, you think, these guys are amazing.
That'll get things moving, man. Yeah,
it is, yeah.
Whiskey. I just I'm not a huge connoisseur in the sense I know what the fuck I'm talking about, but I do like a good whiskey, and especially a good bourbon. And kind of my usual one is a Buffalo Trace.
Mate, that was the one that got me into bourbon. Yeah, at the beginning, when we started our socials, and you might remember, but we did a lot of whiskey reviews, and
I remember,
yeah, weirdly, that's kind of how it started. Me and my friend just thought, well, it'd be cool. We like our whiskey, and it's an excuse. It feels like a job. We could tell our missus, this is our job now.
That's what I mean. Gary Lineker doesn't apologise for talking about football.
Exactly, mate. So I thought, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm the bourbon guy. My mate was the Scotch guy. We kind of mixed and matched now and again. But yeah, I kind of fake it to make it, and I just love drinking it. It's but Buffalo Trace was the very first one because it's so accessible in England.
Yeah.
So anyone listening outside.
I just did my first tour in the US, and we did Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Ohio, and we played one show in Cincinnati, and then so my buddy Phil. So just to rewind it, my buddy Phil, he's from Sunderland, but he's lived in Chicago 14 years, and we connected through my art originally. But him and his wife, Kirstine, they run Loudhailer magazine, which is doing great. She photographs acts, he'll review acts, and it's awesome. And when he found out I was coming over, he said, well, I love road tripping. He's like, I'll come meet you, and I'll drive you around for a week. So we hung out with him. It was awesome. Became very, very fast friends, if we weren't already. And then he had to leave us in Cincinnati, so we picked up my rental car. It was, I was going to be driving the week and a half he had left, and we hired a Toyota Corolla or similar vehicle, and went to downtown Cincinnati, right by Bengal Stadium, and I see this pristine white 3.5 liter Dodge Charger.
Ooh,
and
nice.
Click the key I've been given, and the lights flash. I'm like, no fucking way. So bombing it down through Kentucky, right from Cincinnati, down to this place called Frankfort in Kentucky, and I was like, man, that sounds really fucking familiar. Where do I know that name from? It's like one of those things where it was tipping my tongue, but it was super late, so I went straight to bed. And then as I wake up in the morning, open the curtains, I'm just like stretching, and I look out, I just see a massive sign for Buffalo Trace, and I'm like,
there you go.
We stumbled out the hotel a little earlier than we planned. We went to the distillery, and it was amazing. It's like it's completely free.
No.
I think last year they hit their 8 millionth barrel. and it's like the ultimate like bourbon theme park. It's amazing. It's awesome.
So you were listening throughout the tour, you listen, you're reciting all of these facts and figures, mate. You're obviously enjoying it.
Yeah, it was good, man. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, and then headed from there, coincidentally, straight to Greenville, to a
Is that
really great
North
venue.
Carolina?
No, so there is a Greenville, North Carolina. This is Greenville, Kentucky.
Sorry, yeah.
No, it's all good. Really out the way, but it's in Muhlenberg County, which is famous for all sorts. It's Mel Travis and Bill Monroe was the next county over, I think. But John Prine spent a lot of time there growing up. Obviously wrote the song, Mama, Won't You Take Me Back to Muhlenberg County? And I befriended a lovely couple, Ben and Jenny, who run Sip and Spin, and it's a coffee shop and record store by day, and then a venue by night. So we headed there, and one of the things that Ben does is there's a distillery in town, so I got a great bottle of that, and it's real nice,
the good
very
stuff.
small batch, but now we were out on his porch, and I played the venue on the Saturday, and finally got to meet Ben, Todd, and Ashley May, and Matt Heckler. They came out. They live in town, and we've been talking for a while. But again, we became very fast friends. Went out for a meal, and then the next night, Ben, Jenny, Anne, and I were on their porch and had a cigar and a glass of that, and everything was all right.
You were living the dream, dude,
good.
man.
Yeah.
Mate, honestly, I said to Jack before we jumped on, I said he was living my dream by this tour of Appalachia, and I think that's a really good segue. And you kind of, is that how that all started then? So you went out to kind of tour in Kentucky and those sort of places. That's how it all began. Because obviously you went to quite a number of places while you were out there and saw quite a few people. And was it W.B. Walker?
Yeah, I went to WB. Yeah, we've been friends for kind of friends online really for about 6 years. And then when I said I was coming over, sort of, he was just about to go on holiday, but it just worked out really nicely. And yeah, so segued over into West Virginia, and for some reason my album like really resonated there, especially Kentucky and West Virginia. And so it kind of felt like a homecoming. It's like all these people I'd known online and who have been so supportive. But I recently got invited out there to play Little Sandy Shakedown, which is a great festival up in Greenup County, which is like northern Kentucky, northeast Kentucky. This is the thing. You go to northern Kentucky for an outsider, and it's not, it's eastern Kentucky. Because northern Kentucky's further west, and they don't like being called.
I was going to say, do they get offended when you
get
it wrong?
Yeah, so it's in a northerly part of Kentucky, we'll say that. And that was the first stop. And then, yeah, we ended up doing like 15 shows, man, like 2.5 weeks. And I spoke to Jace, one of the guys who booked the festival. I said, man, how the heck did you find me? He said, dude, I put a post up like from the festival, like December or January last year or this year. And he said, I woke up and I had like messages of people bothering me, like saying, you need to check out this dude. Like, if you can get him over, that'd be fun. And
awesome.
He said, so yeah, I hadn't heard your stuff before then. He said, but yeah, here we are. And it kind of struck me how surreal that was. I was just
was it because it was something different to what they're used to hearing, or
I don't think so, man. I mean, the caliber of artists in Kentucky is just insane.
It's obscene, isn't it?
Yeah, and the scene there, man, like was just, I've never felt community like that before. Like there was no, if someone said they like you or what you're doing, like there's no ulterior motive, there's no gatekeeping.
There's no bullshit to it. It's true. Yeah.
No, it's exactly, just if they like you, they like you, and everyone tries to bring everyone else up. So yeah, it was just kind of crazy. And I said my album resonated over there, and it started out with a joke, with some folks saying like, oh man, like, are you sure like your dad's really from England, like you sure he wasn't, all that kind of stuff, and which is a big honor for me because I love Kentucky, and I love the people, I love the music. And then I don't know why so many people recommended me, but they did, and that's how I kind of got over there. And it ended up doing like best part of 3 weeks. So in one place for no longer than like 2 nights. It was pretty wild. Yeah,
I was following it on Instagram and I thought, this dude's literally living my dream. I was like, every time you went somewhere, it was even cooler.
Well,
I loved it.
You didn't see some of the motels we had to stay in some nights, man, but yeah.
Was that not as fancy as the venues that you visited then?
No, I mean, so some of the hotels were great, man. We were basically booking stuff the day of, so we'd wake up in Moorhead, Kentucky, and be like, right, we're going to be in, man, it's kind of a blur, but we're going to be here tonight, so let's look at a hotel here or halfway to tomorrow's show, and so some of the hotels were great. Some of the hospitality we had was just insane. Like Southern hospitality is definitely a thing. And we had one lady who again become friends with in West Virginia. She has this amazing early 20th century house, and she just said, have it 3 nights. If you want to pay for the lights, then great, but it's yours 3 nights. So but then some of the motels were like No Country for Old Men level.
A bit creepy.
One of the most memorable quotes from the whole trip was from Anne, and we parked up I remember the dude, it took 20 minutes to be seen at the front desk. It's probably around midnight, because the guy was watching anime like behind the counter. So I was just standing there and he was just like and then we finally got in, said goodbye to Phil. He went into his room, and I went up to our room, and it was clearly like a smoking room. There was some fucking questionable fluid on the headboard, which wasn't grout.
God.
And then Anne said, like, basically fuck this, and then went for a shower, and then I heard this massive crash. So I was like, all good, and just didn't hear anything. So she opened the door, handed me the shower curtain rail
that
had fallen off the wall, and went, take this, and just walked past me. And then I'm trying not to laugh more because it's so ridiculous. This was like 4th night in as well, so we still had 2 weeks. And quote of the tour came when I came out of the shower, and goes, Jack, I'm all up for a budget, but fuck this.
That's the title of your next album, man.
Yeah, that's the live record, isn't it?
It is, man.
So yeah, some of it was kind of less than ideal, but some of it was great, man. Yeah.
What memories to kind of make, though, isn't it? At your age as well. Not to say you're young, but that's a lasting memory, isn't it? That you'll never forget. So with the Kentucky scene, the Kentucky music, they've got their own style going on. Has that influenced your music in any way since you've been there?
I think so, man. I mean, I don't know how much I can say right now, but I'm going to be back there in June next year. So sorting some things out for that. And I said, like, so many people that I've been talking to for a year or two online, got a chance to meet them and realize, oh, cool, it's not just bullshit. Like, we are actually really good friends. And planning some stuff with some of the guys over there as well, like recording some things together and everything. So yeah, I think it's rubbed off on me, and it's rubbed off in the sense of, oh my god, like, everyone here is fucking great. Like, you're like, oh wow, I need to up my game. So
I can't probe you, but there's some proper cool stuff in the pipeline going forwards back sure, there, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
names
awesome.
Names you'll recognise for sure, and
mate, honestly, WB Walker, I've been listening to him for a long time. Old Soul Radio. If people aren't familiar with it, it's it's old school radio, isn't it? It's proper country.
Yeah, man. He's in his
it's got his own flavour.
built barn out the front.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I
Um,
was reading up on it, and it is a strange location. The guy is obviously obsessed with music. He's been putting out posts lately with just saying, that it's all about sharing music, and
yeah,
I think
WV's the man. He gave a shit about what I was doing long before, you know, m most people were really. And so when we could figure it out and finally go and hang out, but the trip there was quite an odyssey, man. He's about as rural West Virginia as you can get.
very
And
different.
for about 2 hours, before we reached him in the car, and 2 hours afterwards, we had no signal. And I mean, like, not like text come through like half hour later. I mean, nothing. Um, and there's an old railroad tunnel right by the little town where he's at, and it's kind of iconic. It's on all of his posters and on all of the iconography for the show, and it's about 2/3 of a mile maybe long, single track. So if you're going down it and someone comes to the other end, like someone's backing up. Um, Also super fucking haunted, which I didn't know until after we'd been through it.
Yeah,
And I don't know about paranormal stuff. I think there's something to it. But that place, like, you could definitely feel like, oh man, this is heavy. And then WB was saying, yeah, it was like there's been a few murders in there over the 200 years since they cut it, and there was a thing with the railroad as well, where they were using kind of cheap labor from abroad rather than the Kentucky boys, and a lot of the Kentucky boys started bushwhacking like some of the railway workers, and they just throw them in a pit and put the track right over them. Like,
oh my God.
yes,
So there's some proper
serious
stories
history,
coming
man.
out from that.
Yeah, and then that like 2 hour drive out of there, like as the sun was setting, and you're like, man, like this is. If you broke down, you'd be, if I didn't have, my friend living nearby, like you'd be in some serious shit.
It's like the movies, isn't it? It's not like breaking
Yeah,
down in Essex or rural Essex, shall we say?
yeah,
You're not far
exactly.
from most people, are you?
No, exactly. This was rural.
This was in the middle of nowhere. But I mean, I will go into it shortly. But you're talking about these stories, and when you kindly give me a pre-listen of your track that's being released Friday, is it? Am I correct in
That's
saying
right.
that?
Yeah,
Heavy as the head. The lyrics sound strangely familiar from what you were talking about. So yeah,
yeah, definitely. I mean, I kind of penned that before we went to Kentucky, but it was like, I think it's just a universal thing. I penned it after talking with a few buddies. We were kind of shooting the shit, and the friend I was talking with, like, he's on the road far more than I am, and for longer too. And we were just kind of talking about that kind of cycle of being on the road, and how sometimes it's the best thing in the world, some things it fucking sucks. Sometimes, like, you look forward to like the little things. It
mm,
kind of makes you focus, especially when you're on the road. It makes you focus on things. And it's normally the little things that normally you wouldn't even pay attention to.
yeah. It's funny,
So
I'm listening to the lyrics, and obviously, it will come out on Friday, and people have a proper listen. It's an awesome track. I love it. But
thanks,
I,
man.
I've worked away a lot in the jobs that I've done, and I'm listening to it and thinking, yeah, man, I've been. It's so relatable. I love it. It's
Yeah,
hilarious from that perspective.
yeah, especially if your head's not playing ball and stuff, and all you've got to look forward to is a hotel room on your own. It can get kind of dark and stuff,
A
but
friendly face at the bar, mate. Yeah,
yeah,
it's your best friend for the night.
yeah,
We've
it
all
can
been
be,
there.
man. Yeah, yeah, it really can be. It's just if you smoke, like having a smoke in the car park, just to yourself, where you can just kind of decompress. Some people look forward to that and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of, I guess it started as just a shooting the shit with a friend, about kind of being on the road. And it's one of those things as well, like being on the road, it's not exclusive to music. When I was doing the carpentry stuff, so many of those guys work away all the time. And I don't know exactly what you do, but you work away as well. So it's just, yeah, it's kind of a universal thing.
Yeah, it's tough, mate. You know, you're away from your friends, your family, your kind of daily routine. Fortunately for me, for the last few years, I've been at home, but yeah,
Good.
absolutely relatable, man. It's a hard life, but we do it, you know, to pay the mortgage,
Yeah.
support the family. So, you know, it's you know, the carpentry thing's proper interesting, man. It's is that something you still do? You still dabble in, or you completely kind of left that behind now?
I mean, I was probably a trash carpenter. I was a glorified labourer, like carpenter's labourer. Um, but I got to do it with kind of my best mate and his some of his family, so some of his brothers and his old man, and his old man's kind of like an uncle figure. And we all grew up like brothers anyway, so that probably sold a lot of it for me because I was just working with family all day basically. But no, I do miss it. You know, I miss a lot of it. You know, I did enjoy it when I did it. Unless the weather was kind of like it is now, in which case it was kind of less fun. But yeah, I enjoyed it, man. I definitely enjoyed that more than any kind of job where I was behind a counter or a desk, you know, like
Or a computer
all
like
day.
me?
But
Yeah.
yeah, but as you said, man, it's what you say. You know, you just got to do what you got to do, and
It's the grind
yeah,
you do for your family, like you say. It's no,
yeah. I
it's
mean, the
commendable.
carpentry thing was a complete accident. You know, I never set out to do that. It was just I was the art wasn't art, and the music wasn't music, and you know, I got offered this opportunity with my my friend. So it was kind of lucky that I enjoyed it, you know, and enjoyed the people I was doing it with, because I imagine it'd been a lot difficult if I hadn't.
Awesome, man. And this is going to be the most tenuous segue ever from carpentry to Red Barn Radio. You know, can you see the
Yes,
link there?
I can.
Because I
Yeah,
really wanted to touch upon that because I've been watching Red Barn Radio for quite some time, and it's quite well, I don't know if it isn't an obscure type program online
yeah, I'd say so.
mainly. It's
Yeah,
but
it's
they've had some awesome artists, and I think it's synonymous with Tyler Childers, that kind of early performance. And
that record
you
he
know,
did. Yeah,
when I saw obviously your travels across America, and then I saw you doing Red Barn Radio, I watched it on YouTube. I watched the whole thing and I thought it was
thanks,
absolutely,
man.
you
I hope you enjoyed
smashed it,
it.
mate. You smashed it, mate. Yeah, you know, I
Thanks,
thought it was
man.
brilliant. I love the guy's kind of you know, the way he presents. It's very quite
He's
matter of
amazing.
fact, dry. He's you know, he's kind of a good host, isn't he?
I was shitting myself, to put it
Was you?
bluntly. Um, you know, so I played with Shelby, Tyler, and Luke. Sorry, I played with Shelby and Luke the weekend before at Little Sandy Shakedown, the festival. Tyler on bass was meant to join us, but he'd been taken ill the night before. So we'd all rehearsed one day before at an amazing place called the Starlight Lounge in Moorhead. Moorhead? Yeah, I think it was Moorhead. So we rehearsed the day before, and then we were playing that. But so I knew the band had it. You know, we could have not rehearsed, and they'd have been great. Shelby and the boys are just fantastic. But partly because of the fact that I've been watching it for a while, and as you say, I mean, aside from like Tyler and people like that, you know, you had like Tom T Hall on there and stuff, and there was Dickhead turning up doing a Tom T Hall cover.
Absolutely not, man.
Um, and you kind of walk in, and it's in like kind of art gallery slash like municipal building, I think it is
I
in
was going to ask
in
that, and I thought,
Lexington.
you know, you obviously see what you see on YouTube, and
Yeah.
it looks the same. And I thought, well, where is this place? You know, what is kind of behind the scenes? Is there no audience there? Is it just the host?
So they used to have an audience, and it was never advertised, but it kind of grew like to like a regular audience, and then COVID happened and that stopped, and they kind of made some concessions for me. Like, so I actually had a little audience, which was really lovely. But it's like you go in and you walk to like an art gallery, and then you go into the back, and it's like this huge kind of like early 20th century building, with like a mezzanine going around the edge of the room. Um, and then the crew are insane. They pack up and pack down just for the show,
Really
and
quick.
it's like studio quality equipment. So there's a fuck ton of it. It's super technical, and obviously they're recording it, but they're also putting it out live with video. I don't know how they do it. And yeah, and then there's all these lights on you, and you're kind of in the middle of this room, and then for showtime they put the curtains around, and it becomes that kind of iconic black curtain with the, you're kind of
Yeah.
just in a round, with the wooden floor.
Yeah.
Um,
I know it.
but no, like the team is crazy. There's probably about 8 or 9 people working on it, and all of them to a person, just absolutely lovely. Just from the host to the lady, I can't remember her name, and I do apologize. Who was kind of like set dressing, like
Yeah.
she came along and was like, well, you and Shelby are going to put your tumblers on that amp case, so I'll put a lantern here, and it was so good.
The minor
And
details were taken care of. Yeah.
yeah, and just everyone was so lovely. We all kind of grabbed some food beforehand. We all went for a drink afterwards. There was a great like whiskey bar around the corner, so we all went there afterwards. And no, it's just amazing, man, and kind of so professional, like in-ear monitors and everything, which I hadn't worked with before. I was having a bit of jip with it. I don't know if you saw it, but the first couple of songs, I
I
was
could
really
see you.
struggling with my in-ears.
Yeah, I could see that.
But it was because my stupid shaped ears, not a comment on their equipment. And I'd kind of like threaded it up through my shirt, up my back, so with the guitar strap on it, I guess it just messed with it and stuff. So
I could see you a few times doing that, and I thought, yeah, I'm not a technical guy, but I thought you'd be having some issues there. Yeah.
But yeah, it flew by, and then just the response to it was crazy. I can't, because obviously, I mean, I was too nervous to do most of anything before I went on. And so kind of came off, decompressed, packed up, went to this whiskey bar, and then pulled up my phone, and just the amount of people that had like either back in England had kind of like had it on at work, because I think it was kind of like late afternoon, right, when it went out. That kind of like had it under the desk at work, or had it on while they were doing something, and like some friends in the US and everything. It was just awesome, man. It's such an honor to have that.
That's an amazing thing. We didn't know each other at that point, but I was like super proud. I thought this is,
Thank
one
you,
of
man.
my English guys. We've gone out there on their kind of scene, and you rocked it, mate. It was fantastic.
And all that, like, it was just, I mean, it was a relief to make it to Lexington in the first place, because we drove up the arse of a hurricane in Indiana.
Oh my God.
And like in the middle of the night, and that was terrifying. But Lexington was awesome. Lexington's a great town. And again, just there's a great musician up in northern Kentucky, and his I think fiance has this lovely townhouse in Lexington, and they were trying to sell it, and so it was empty. And as soon as he heard I was coming over for this tour, he said, well, dude, if you're in Lexington, he said, as long as it's not sold, you and Anne are more than welcome to stay. So we had this lovely house. It was really nice to have a base. And Lexington was just a really cool town, man. I loved everything about it.
I'm so jealous, mate. Now we're best friends. Obviously, I'm coming out with you next time. So
100%, man.
Don't forget me, mate. Honestly, please don't forget me.
Oh, dude, I couldn't.
Look, man, it's that's been great. So we've got onto Red Barn Radio. I've got some general questions at the end, really. I'd say I'm obsessed with your Instagram. I've been stalking you, Jack, over the years. Don't be creeped out. But then I think, I don't know if it was before, during, after, but I keep seeing you with real famous guys at the minute. Chris from 49 Winchester, Brandon from the Red Clay Strays, who just towers over you. I don't know if you're super short or he's super tall, man.
Dude,
I don't know.
that man won the genetic lottery. Let me tell you. Like, I was joking around with I can't remember who it was. We were talking about this. I was like, dude has a fucking killer voice. He's like 29 or 30. He's like a few years older than me. He's like 6'17", fucking stylish. Playing around the world with his fucking band.
He's
his
one of a
wife
kind,
Macy
man.
is like his wife and him was so lovely, and yeah, couldn't have been kinder. And yeah, Isaac from 49 Winchester,
Sorry,
and
Isaac. Yeah, that's my bad, man.
yeah, it's yeah, just I've had a real, the real privilege to meet so many of the people I look up to, but then also to kind of befriend so many of them, which is really surreal.
That was going to be my
Um,
question. Was like, were these kind of backstage, kind of just brief encounters? Were these, longer,
yeah,
time?
the Brandon one was so his wife Macy had seen my painting of him that I did, and my friend Nolan was opening up for them, and so I was going to go down anyway and kind of catch up with him. And then Macy said, "Oh well, if you can bring the painting down, then like the least we can do is give you guys tickets and stuff." And
Awesome.
yeah, kind of got to hand over the painting, so that went to them, which is where it belongs, and that was really lovely. Got to meet him quick. I think Macy had made Brandon late for sound check with shopping. I think that was the reason it was kind of fleeting. But
Typical.
um, yeah, Isaac was a funny one. So kind of to rewind it, I did a painting of Drayton Farley last year, who is brilliant if you haven't checked him out.
Yes, yeah, I love Drayton.
Yeah, so I'd done this painting of him, and we'd connect over that and connect with some of his family as well who had seen it, and I'd
Funny
sent prints
enough,
out.
sorry, mate, I
No,
discovered
dude.
Drayton's stuff from your cover of his song that you put on
Oh, cool, man.
Instagram. So that's
Yeah,
how
pigeon
I
checks. Yeah.
went down that rabbit hole. Yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, thanks for introducing me to his stuff.
Oh man, I'm glad to get out. Like, so I was a fan of his music. I was a fan before, and then he came over for C2C this year, and I want to. So we were going to hang out anyway, and then I've got like I've got what's being treated as Crohn's, so I was feeling really bad, and I was like, man, I saw him on the Friday, we hung out, and then it's the first time he'd ever left the United States on a flight, and his plane lands in Berlin, which is where the first night of C2C was, but his baggage definitely did not.
Oh man.
um, and so he was obviously like super stressed. He was playing these shows. I said, dude, get him to send it to my place, and I'll bring it down on Sunday. So we hung out on the Friday. Then the case came, hung out with him again, um, and hung out with his wife as well. So Anne and his wife Emily got on so well, and we went out for drinks and showed him around London, and then saw him the next week at C2C again. And then he was coming back over to open for 49 Winchester. So we kind of hooked up again. He said, "Oh, dude," he said, "we're playing in London, so if you want to, hang out again." And yeah, watched them open and ended up on the roof terrace like after the show with them. I had Isaac throw me a bottle of champagne that they were cracking open to celebrate the tour. And I distinctly remember me and Isaac, we spent, I want to say 20 minutes throwing impressions of Mike Tyson at each other. It was the week of like what was going to be the Tyson fight with Jake
Oh
Paul.
yes, yes, I know it. Yeah.
And we were talking about Mike Tyson's ridiculous comments about like Jake Paul being on the Disney Channel. I don't know how we got onto it. And yeah, just had a few things, and Drayton had to cut that tour short, and they actually asked if I'd be able to open a show for them, but I was already on the road with Asleep at the Wheel for that weekend. So it's kind of like
You
bittersweet
kept it in the
because
bank,
obviously,
though. Please tell me you kept it in the bank.
yeah, I mean, like, so again, I never expect anything, and I was honored to even be asked, even as a last minute thing, but kind of kept in touch a little bit, and then one day I opened up Instagram, and it was just like 49 Winchester commented on someone's post like Jack Browning is the truth. I was like, man, what the fuck? Like that is so mental. So now I've got that and Ben Todd's comment. So before we kind of got to know each other like we do, Ben Todd commented on something saying Jack is a bad motherfucker, And so I've got that and the 49 Winchester coming at the top of my website. It just
I want to
that
see your
means the
impressions
world.
of Mike Tyson. You should have recorded those and then put that on it. I think that
Well,
would have been.
Isaac's one was shit hot, man. It was great.
It was better than yours, was it?
And well, I won't. Yeah, let's not be hasty.
Uh,
But it was good, man. It was like, yeah, a lot of whiskey and champagne and stuff on this roof terrace. I think it was Coco in Camden, which is a great venue. Yeah,
yeah.
very surreal. And then obviously hanging out with Charlie when he played in London.
Charlie Crockett. Is that
Yeah.
the? I forget the name of the bar now, but it's at North London, isn't it?
Oh, so that's the Dukes of Highgate. That's my
That's the
mate
one. The Dukes
Sinead
of
and
Highgate.
Theo's place. They were great. They were awesome. I've played a few shows there, and it's a must stop for the most casual country fan, or even if you just love whiskey, pop in. They're great. They always look after you. But no, I met Charlie at it was when he played. He did like 3 acoustic shows in London, which was really strange. I remember a lot of people thinking, "Huh?" And yeah, we kind of like he knew all about what I was doing because we figured it out, and his manager said, "Oh yeah, like come back afterwards." So we did, and yeah, Charlie, the first thing he said was, "So are you coming for my job?" And I was like, "Man, even if I wanted to, I couldn't." And then he was just the coolest just
No
ever.
one
And
dresses like Charlie Crockett, do they?
dude, no one could get away with dressing like Charlie. I remember like one of my friends was he was opening for him in the US, and he said like I purposely didn't put up any of the pictures I had next to Charlie because I just looked like shit. And I felt very much the same, but like he's like the epitome of cool, and even like saying goodbye to Anne, like as we were going away, he's like, "Lovely to meet you too, Miss Anne." And I was like, "Fucking Charlie, chill out, man.
Just
Holy
calm
shit."
down, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
fucking calm down, Charlie.
Leave some for the rest of us, man. Come on.
I'm fucking heating up, like holy shit. So that was awesome, and yeah, just been real privilege. And then I was in Kentucky, just getting to play, like grab dinner with Ben and Ashley, and have them in the audience was probably the most terrified I've ever been playing a show. But
you come through it.
just
You've done it.
yeah, just
You've come
about.
through it.
My voice
And
nearly didn't, but
mate, you've smashed it every single time. I've when I've seen you online, the Red Barn Radio stuff. Even in the face of adversity with some of the tech issues, you've been fantastic. So it is something to be proud of, man. I know you downplay it a lot, but it's something to be super proud of. I couldn't do it for sure. Absolutely
thanks,
not.
man. Yeah, it's all stuff I can't believe is happening or has happened, and I always say I keep waiting for the bottom to fall out of everything, but until it does, I just keep showing up.
Keep doing your thing, mate. I think that's all you can do. Keep doing your thing. Be real. You're obviously a really nice bloke, and people should be supporting you. It's one of those things. And I saw recently on your post that you've just announced London the Grace, and I wanted to ask you about that, man.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I mean, next for me, I'm really old school. I've got a dad wall calendar. I'm like that kind of guy. So I've got like the studio next week, and then
Are you
the
looking
week
at it
after
now?
yeah, and then I'm in because otherwise I wouldn't have a clue. And then the week after that, I'm in the Netherlands. I'm playing a Americana Roots festival.
Okay.
So the White Buffalo is going to be there again.
Yes, you were telling me about the White Buffalo as we were offline, weren't you? Because you saw my Sons of Anarchy picture behind me. So what was the story with the White Buffalo, man?
Yeah, so I did his album cover a couple of years ago. I did a portrait of him when he visited London in 2018. He saw it, and his management sent me an email saying, "If you want to bring it down, like Jake would love to meet you." And got to hang out. I was a big fan anyway, so got to meet him. Didn't think anything else of it, and then 18 months later, I got an email saying, "Jake's in the studio. Your name kept coming up at artwork. Would you be interested?" So I was like, "Yeah, I guess. No, fucking, of course I will." So I ended up doing the album cover for his record On the Widow's Walk. And we kept in touch a little bit. Anytime he comes through town, you know, generally he puts tickets aside for Anne and I, and we go down and say hello. And then next like 2 weeks time, I'm going to be playing with him and Uncle Lucius and
I love that band, man.
Yeah, me too, man. And my buddy Aaron Boyd's coming over from Kentucky, and there's a whole host of other people playing in Utrecht. And then November 23rd, I've got a show at the Grace in London, which is a big headline show, like terrifying and exciting in equal measure. I was there in March, I think, supporting Henry Wagons, who's another dude that you should check out. He's great.
Mate, I will. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the coolest Australian dude ever. And he's got a song about Willie Nelson, which is great. So
what's not nice to like?
He's awesome. Exactly. It's kind of like 3 of you 5 a day, isn't it? So November 23rd, I'm doing that. And then we just announced support yesterday, which is linked it back to Charlie, Charlie's buddy, Texas Joe, who goes by Texas Radio and the Big Beat.
Yeah, man. Talk to us about him.
Oh, dude, he is about as bona fide a legend as they come. So he is obviously from Texas. You know, you don't buy a name like Texas Joe. You know, you get given it. And he's a very successful restaurateur. I think he was on Dragon's Den. I want to say he was on Dragon's Den at one point. And then he's run Texas Joe's barbecue restaurants, and I think there's one in London, and there's also a Mexican restaurant that he does also in London. But he's had them all over the place, and I think currently they're right by London Bridge, I think. Yeah. But his other big passion is music, and he goes out and I actually saw him opening for Charlie. And he's just been over in Texas and Colorado opening the show for Charlie, and he's just this amazing personality, lovely dude, and he spins real 45s and kind of talks over it, really like puts on a show. And quite honestly, I couldn't believe it when he said he'd love to do it. I said he's just come off of this monster tour opening for Charlie Crockett, and there's this dude asks him to play in London. He's like, yeah, man, I'd love to. We met properly when I played with Asleep at the Wheel. He's friends with Josh Headley, who is a phenomenal musician in his own right, but also plays fiddle for Asleep at the Wheel sometimes. So I met him properly then, and I saw him cutting shapes in a full Western suit with an older lady behind me during Asleep at the Wheel set, like two-stepping. And
that sounds like it's going to be my wedding, mate.
Away. Yeah, sounds great, man. But he's awesome, and a total legend. So I'm absolutely honoured that he's decided to kick off the show.
No, it's amazing, and like I said, I wanted to ask you about him because personally I didn't know an awful lot. I see a lot of pictures with Charlie Crockett, and I guessed he's part of that scene. So anyone who loves Texas Radio, the Big Beat, I'm sorry if I've done him a disservice, but no, it's always good to learn, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Texas Radio and the Big Beat is a fairly new thing for him, but yeah, if you look up Texas Joe,
that's what it probably is. I looked up that name, couldn't find an awful lot. But you know what, man? Yeah. If I can get tickets, if it's not sold out, I'm gonna be there.
Oh, I'd love to have you there, man. That'd be great.
Yeah, it'll be awesome to have a beer and watch you perform, man. That'll be amazing.
Love it, man. I'm bringing the whole band, so we'll have everything. We'll have pedal steel, fiddle, guitars,
proper
everything.
Proper stuff, mate. Yeah, absolutely amazing. So, yeah, if you'll have us, mate, I'll be more than happy to come down. It's not too far.
That'd be a lot of fun, man. I'd like that very much.
Definitely. Thank you, dude. Just looking at new music. So, obviously, you've got your release on Friday, and that was awesome to listen to. And it's been a roller coaster, really. You've had Red Eye Radio, you've had High Hopes that I think did really well. I added to the playlist ages ago because I loved it. Champagne Taste is a real fun track. And then Heavy is the Head.
Funny one.
Who took the pictures for that?
That was Anne.
Had to be
I don't
done.
know whether to feel sorry for her or feel happy that she got to take such a great photo. But yeah, it was pretty cramped in that bath with that hat on, especially. It's a big old hat.
Looking all sexy,
My,
Jack.
my cigar got wet. Yeah, it's harrowing. Yeah.
A real man's man you are, I tell you.
Some words for it. I've been called worse.
But no, it's I mean for me it's been good song after good song after good song, and you're just on a roll, man. So
Thank you, man.
I'm
That means a
super
lot.
interested to see what happens next. I mean, with your band, I mean, I'm trying not to keep you too long, man. I know we've been
Oh,
here
no, you're
for
fine.
a couple of hours, dude. But with your band at the moment, has it been mainly session musicians? Have you got a kind of a set kind of band behind you now?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the album. It was, I've just relied on some phenomenal session dudes, and a lot of them have kind of been very understanding with especially when we were getting things off the ground initially. Like not getting their usual fee and stuff. But we've kind of settled into a bit of a rhythm with some more regular guys, and I think the longest tenured, the longest suffering one is Chris, who plays steel and guitar with me. He plays for so many great folks, and yet he always finds the time to, put up with my bollocks.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly. Even when I go out solo, I normally end up taking Chris, and we just do a duo thing where he's on steel and I'm on acoustic and singing. So, yeah, but started working with some guys recently. There's been Rick Kent, who is great. We connected through some mutual friends just before lockdown. I found out we're both massive anoraks for World War II history.
Cool.
So we're both rivet counters, and he's also a phenomenal drummer. And he played drums on the record, and then had another very good friend of mine, Adam Hayes, who drummed me live, and also played on kind of the 3 songs I put out this summer. He played on those. Yeah, just been blessed really. My buddy Wizzer, we grew up playing in those rock bands I was telling you about, as kids, and he played bass on the album and completely smashed it. He's not.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a guitarist first and foremost, and he ended up smashing it on bass. And yeah, it's really taken a whole village, man. A small circle, but a circle I couldn't have done it without.
Definitely. No, I was just interested, man, because it's I think it makes a real difference when you're out on the road, when you're recording. I think, it's
Yeah.
I'm not an artist myself, but I can imagine it makes a big difference when you've
Oh,
got your
totally,
buddies with
man.
you.
I mean, I've got like a something beyond the music with everyone I work with. So with Chris, it's general bullshit and football. Like we're both really
Who's
into
your
football. The
team?
last time for my Sims, West Ham, but someone has to be.
I thought you were going to say Tottenham,
Um,
because I DM'd Jack at the weekend. I'm a United fan, and I was testing the waters to see if you were a
no,
Tottenham fan.
and even if I was, I wouldn't tell you after the weekend.
You'd be too
But
kind.
yeah, so like that, and I said with Rick, like we probably hung out more at museums and military fairs and stuff than we ever have like in the studio. We've got that, and Dan, who is the genius behind the studio work and the producer, we are pretty capable of talking only in Simpsons quotes for like a month before we actually sort of say, all right, and by the way, like this kind of thing. So yeah, we've all got just, there's always something beyond the music, with everyone I work with, because you need that. You need people that are fun to hang out with, that you connect with, because
100%, man.
yeah,
100%.
one of my favorite memories from recording High Hopes was, so we recorded High Hopes, Heavy as the Head, and Champagne Taste in 2 days, and we stayed over at the studio accommodation, and they've got this awesome projector, and it was just Chris and I staying over, and we were, he's Italian, I should say that. And so we were both just looking at the heyday of like Italian international football in the 2000s. And he's that much of a student of it. He can like quote the commentary of like these iconic moments.
That's proper
like,
sad, mate.
Dude, this is wild. Yeah, that's crazy behaviour, you know. But,
Normally, you know,
yeah.
blokes have the most fun in a pub just naming random footballers.
Dude,
It's awesome.
so Ross, who's the guy who runs Holler, I don't know if you know their
No.
stuff, great country publication. We basically bonded over, like, initially over our love of everything Neil Warnock and
Neil Warnock,
kind of
legend.
Barclays, Premier League. You know, I grew up on that. You know, it was like kind of, and we can just, as you said, just name. I just send him a text message, be like, Brad Friedel, thoughts?
Just a random name.
Yeah.
And he gets it.
Yeah, meet you, opinions, you know, that kind of thing.
Quality.
Yeah,
People have no clue what we're on about, I'd imagine.
No, we've just lost anyone else who was listening.
Oh my God. But no, honestly, mate, going back to influences and I suppose artists right now, like I said earlier on, I think going through Instagram right now for me is probably the favorite. Spotify's good, but Instagram I think kind of pips it. And you know, I think it's mainly because people are on the grind at the moment. They're kind of sponsoring this stuff, and it works obviously because I'm looking at Nathan Bess, and you know, I've instantly gone to Spotify, listened to his stuff, and think it's fantastic. And you know, is there any artists that you've seen right now, any kind of lesser known individuals that you want to kind of give a shout out to, or you like particularly?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, there's so many.
It's hard, isn't it?
Talking,
there is so many.
Yeah, if we're talking like criminally underrated, like if you're not listening to Dalton Mills, you need to give your head a wobble. He's awesome. One of the loveliest dudes as well. Got to give a shout out to my buddy Bill Taylor as well, who's awesome. He may or may not be one of the dudes I'm cooking something up with, but he's a real Kentucky gentleman and just has one of the best voices what I've ever heard. He was one of a few people that made my buddy cry at Little Sandy Shakedown just through his songwriting. You know, it's that beautiful.
Awesome.
So yeah, those guys, man. I could list off. I could go through my playlist and list them all, but yeah, there's so many.
I was struggling as well because I thought, like you say, you couldn't just list hundreds, but you know,
that's why things like your playlist are good, man. You know, because you can, you give people a platform, which is. Really
I'm trying, yeah, and I'm maybe sometimes being a bit naive because they might have, you know, a bigger following on Facebook or TikTok or something that I'm not aware of. But I'm looking at what I can see on Spotify and you know the platforms I'm, and I think it'd be nice to give them a push and just say, look, give them a listen. I think it's great. Go look at their socials. I'm getting nothing for this. I don't want anything for it.
That's what I mean. Yeah, you're just doing it for the love of the game.
Exactly. It's just great, you know. And people I love at the moment are like Presley Hale. I think she's criminally underrated. I've not heard a bad record from her. Jackson Hatch, I've discovered from Instagram too. Seth Van Dover was a funny one. I actually sent him a DM earlier about his song Marijuana. Jesus, it's a awesome song.
That's two of your essentials, isn't it?
It's been stuck in my head all day, man, honestly. And I've just said to him, I apologize because I've been singing around the house, probably pissing everyone off. But I thought, you know what, that is a good song and I'm going to share it. So I don't give a fuck.
I love messages like that, man. And I know, you know, 99% of other musicians would love that too. I love it when I get crazy messages or when you get added to like a funny playlist, you know, it makes your whole day. So
exactly. When you see my name, you think, I don't know how he's going to take this. I always invite him to the group as well. So the Rugged Revival Facebook group, if anyone wants to join, you know, come and join us. We've got artists.
It's a great little hangout, man. It's a lovely little community.
I think so. You know, we've got really nice people there of all kind of walks of life. And I always invite people. And just for a laugh, sometimes I, you know, just message Sturgill Simpson, go, fancy come and join my Facebook group with less than 200 people. Be a right laugh. Come on, mate.
Come on, Sturg. Yeah.
Come on, mate. What are you waiting for? So,
exactly.
you know, he's a bit rude. He hasn't responded yet, but he's kind of busy.
Yeah, what, you too good for a stage? Yeah?
I know, yeah, you kind of moved on from this scene, have you, dude? But no, I suppose one final question for me, mate, because like I said, we've been taking a lot of your time, and it's been so interesting, kind of going through everything. Yeah, I've loved it. Guilty pleasures, you know, I'm going to put you on a spot here, mate. You know, going through your
Dude,
Spotify, there's got to be some cringe-worthy
I've got one
stuff on
for you
there.
straight away.
Go on.
Fucking Lana Del Rey.
That's not cringe-worthy. That's not too bad.
No, I don't think it's cringeworthy, but I know a few people that have had a few choice words about it when they hear it. Yeah, I love Lana. I love. It's not really a guilt. Again, it's not really a guilty pleasure. I love 90s hip hop, man. I
Cool,
I
man.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Method Man, Snoop, Grave Diggers, Gangstar, all those guys. So, but cringe stuff.
Macarena. I'm looking at you thinking Macarena.
I'm not really. No, I was always more of a Man by Number Five kind of dude.
Oh yeah. You're a bit younger, and you.
I don't know,
Yeah.
Simply Red. I don't mind a bit of Simply Red.
Simply Red. There you go.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
guess that's kind of cringe.
Now the
That's
truth's
like
coming
kind of
out. You start with
middle-aged
90s hip hop,
mum,
and I'm
isn't it?
thinking
Yeah,
it's Simply Red. I knew it.
yeah, Simply Red. I think it's probably about as cringy as it gets, really. Yeah, one man's cringe is another man's treasure, isn't it? So I don't know, but
I do little playlists on mine. I think you got the 90s stuff, you got the 80s. I got free tickets recently at the somewhere in Birmingham by the NEC, or whatever you call it now these days, for Texas. Remember Texas?
yeah,
She was pretty bloody good live, man. You know, it's
that's the thing,
it's not
man.
my thing,
Sometimes,
but I'm a
no,
fan. I'm now a
yeah,
fan.
no, sometimes that happens, man. I've seen people at festivals and stuff. Like I remember, we played a festival in like 2019 in Switzerland with Joss Stone.
Oh yeah.
She was fucking badass, dude. Like that show, like the band were incredible. And it's not someone I'd have ever gone to see, you know. So sometimes that's when you
It's
discover
nice when that happens,
the
isn't
stuff,
it? You know.
yeah.
It's really cool. It's really cool. So yeah, well, I've just revealed I'm a Texas fan now. So that's probably
Yeah.
probably the last
Really?
podcast I'll ever do, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, first and last. Yeah.
Jack, man, look, I appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure, dude. It's been great talking to you.
I've loved it. It's been a long time in the making. Thank you so much. What do you want to plug, mate? Honestly, you know, obviously your social handles, give Jack a follow, give him a listen,
Yeah.
and you know what's going on.
I mean, I've got the new, obviously the new song out, and it'll all be tied together with an EP, which I'll be bringing out in November. And then, yeah, for folks over in the UK, I'm playing The Grace on November 23rd. So tickets are flying, but there's still some left. So yeah, come join us, man. So we're gonna have Texas Joe. We're gonna bring a couple of friends as well, and the band. So should be a good night, nice and central. And if you can stomach being that close to Arsenal, then you're all good.
Oh, mate, I'm not sure about that.
Give me the tremors as well, man. Yeah.
Oh, it's gross, isn't it? But well, for old buggers like me as well, as they're seated, you know, close to the bands that we can sit down and enjoy.
There's some seats at the back. It's pretty old school standing, I'm afraid. But we have concessions, so I'm sure there'll be.
Mate, I'm going to be there. If I can get tickets and you've got some left, I will certainly be there. I promise.
I really appreciate it, man.
I'd love to
have
see
you there.
it.
It'd be a lot of fun.
And I know Dan couldn't make it tonight, so Jack, if you want to be my co-host in future, I'd love to have you, dude.
Oh, it'd be fun, dude. Yeah, it'd be fun.
I think we'll pick who we want. You know, we will do our own thing.
Yeah.
And when you're not drinking coffee, you can have a whiskey with me. And
I will. Yeah, next time you catch me on a day when I can.
I've got a wish list, mate. Honestly, so with your connections, right? Get me Colter, Cordero, Adam Hood. I've been pestering that guy to come on this podcast. Prezi Hale, Race Rickers. Honestly, so yeah, that's why I'm going to use you as my co-host.
It will happen, dude. Yeah, it will happen, man.
So otherwise,
keep in touch.
Yeah, no, appreciate it, man. But otherwise, you know, like, follow, share, subscribe to Jack's stuff, and certainly to the Rugged
stuff,
Revival, the usual stuff. Join our Facebook group. We'd love to have you. But Jack, man, it's been a real pleasure, dude. Thank you for coming on.
Cheers, man. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.